Welcome to the show. Today's topic. What is today's topic? Oh, men need to stay fit. And no, this is not going to be a workout program. I'm going to dive into a little bit, obviously, the more known, yes, the benefits, the how men can, ultimately, benefit short gain with fitness, but we're gonna get into more. I want to get into more of the long term benefits. Just because this weird number came across me, and even before the number came across me, the thought came across my mind as far as we hear it all the time, like, oh, men need to stay fit, men need to stay fit. And there, of course, men do need to stay fit, right? Not just men, everyone, but men need to stay fit. Why? Because it keeps our blood pressure. We know that. Our vitals, our cholesterol levels. If we stay fit and take care of ourselves, eat kind of correctly, whatever, we know those things. You know what? And that's a great thing to have in your forefront. What are some other ones, right, that we could think of off the top of our heads? We look better to the opposite sex, and we even look better to ourselves, which raises our self-esteem. We move differently throughout the world. We're just a different person when aesthetically we know we look a certain way, or we're confident. And again, it's not just solely for men. It's both men and women. So when we know those importance uh factors of staying fit, but most of those times, or most of those ones, you think of them and you think of, I mean, the maybe the nutrition, we do think of it more in later, but honestly, you see it a lot with, like, what's quote unquote the hipsters or the younger crowd, with the vegan and eating more greens and whatnot. So it's not like it's more I think it's more like a new age kind of a thing, which, again, being having your vitals, staying fit, having a healthy diet is definitely a thing we have to have. And I think that's the misnomer, where it's like, oh yeah, of course we have it. No, I think it's more with the younger crowd now, that they're getting into more of a healthy lifestyle. But it's not what's going on in our middle or later generations, and how they're eating their foods. Some are can't afford eating organic, or can't afford certain things, or don't know how to do certain things, and lead towards something unknown. So again, not an excuse. Everyone is at the end of the day responsible for their own experience here on planet Earth. But it is what it is, right? The facts are facts. You can't. It's not something that you could just gloss over. If you weren't taught, you weren't taught. If you don't know what you don't know, then you don't freaking know. And that's the truest saying that anybody will you ever hear from someone else, and from me, and from other people. At the end of the day, it's just, there's so many variables, but you want to use your best judgment. You want to use your best kind of foot forward. So what I mean by, yes, men need to stay fit. Yeah, we know, again, the ones that I just topped off, and more, like the ones that we could just name off the top of our head. But what I want to bring into an attention is where maybe it's just me and the way I move through, or maybe the way my mind's working. But I ran into a number when I was thinking about this, and I was like, man, people are dying. Because I think I heard in the news, which is not uncommon. You hear it all the time. It doesn't matter. But it was like 50-year-old someone that passed away, a famous person. And it just got me thinking, like, wow, life is really quick. especially when you're starting to hit my age and you're starting to hit towards your second half of your life, and you hear some of these, traumatic things, and you want to know more, right? Because you're not that you're there, but you want to know what they had, how it could be preventive. And then you hear a lot of these stories where you heard this, or a coworker this, and then it drove you to eating better, quitting this, doing that. It's great that we have, but it's not great. It's sad that it takes those extremes for us to start, doing something about it. But the average, the part that got me going down this rabbit hole, I guess, was the average age of men passing away. So the average age of men passing away is 77 years old. The normal way of thinking, right? You're thinking, well, that's a full life, right? Like that that is a life, well lived. Oh my God, he's blessed that he got to that age. But I'm sure there's probably close to 50-50 if I put that in a poll somewhere, whether it's a long life or a life too short. I guarantee you that many will say that's a life too short, especially if you're looking at it from 50-year-old or 60-year-old. You're like, wait, what? Like that's just around the corner. So that's the number for men. Is some that I want to talk about, and how can we add 23 years of that? Because I'm in that side that I think it's too short. I don't like the fact that 77 is the average age, especially with what's going on. And obviously, maybe that's a greedy side to me, thinking like, hey, you know what, with medicine the way we are and everything that's going around, we should expect to live to be 100 years old. That should be a normal thing. And you're starting to hear it a lot more, and it's becoming something that I think with nutrition, with science, with medicine, we're starting to achieve these feats a lot more easier, and it's becoming something around the world more common. People reaching the age of 100, and in some cases beyond. But let's not get with the fantasy. Let's say, well, how do we get there, right? No one's perfect, and you can't live your life perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to drink too much soda. You're going to smoke cigarettes. You might do some hard drugs. You might have an accident. You might have a precondition. So no matter, there's so many variables. So they're at the end of everything. Nothing is controlled, even though, but we try to at least control the variables that we can. The unexpected is unfortunately the unexpected, and that's just the beauties and ugliness that comes with being alive in this world. And what we want to concentrate on is, how do we get to adding, you know 23 years, so we can reach, the 100 years old. But before we even have that discussion, some people might be saying, wow, that 100 years old is too long. And I'm like, is it really? Is it too long, where we don't know if something is beyond this grave, if something is beyond, this existence? Is it too long to add 25 years of what if there's nothing beyond? What if religion is wrong, and this is the only moments we have to enjoy what we have? It's not always about sexual, and we become such a sexualized culture that we think, well, what's the point? What about traveling? What about enjoying, a cup of coffee at 89 years old with one of your best friends that you've known for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and being to reminisce about a life well spent, memories and laughters well laughed, travels around the world, mischiefs that only you and your closest knows to you. Like, that should be something that should be championed, because we don't know. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there's something great, the universe has for all of us after we stop breathing in this existence that we call Earth. But we don't know that. So adding 23 years to our existence to reach us for 100, for me, when people say, oh my God, that's too long, I don't know, Like I get weirded out by that. Like, is life so hard for you? Adding another 23 years to your life to reach 100 is painful, and if it is, then we need to start changing this narrative. And that's where this topic comes up. Like, how can we add 23 years? Let's get men to 100 years old to have in quality in those 100 years, so how do we do that? What are some, and the first steps to doing that is to seeing what are some of the killers, what causes us to pass at 77 or earlier. So if 77 is the average, then it's more likely than some dying at 70, 68. And again, we have the misnomers or the odd ones out that die even younger. But what causes, some are out of our control, but some are definitely in our control. Like, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you do too, and coworkers, family members that have high blood pressure, but yet you catch them cheating. You catch them eating that cheeseburger. You catch them eating that, sugary, and oh, don't tell no one, don't tell no, I'm only doing it this once, and you just, pass it off as, oh, it's just this once. But how many just this once has he done or she done? Then in her that have led to, instead of helping, more harm. Where we're not taking or holding each other accountable. At the end of the day, we have to hold ourselves accountable. But it's kind of some of those things where, hey, we need that extra push because we know how hard it is. And changing something. So if you have high blood pressure, changing your diet, and in a healthy way, in a consistent way, so then you're not having those, oh, don't tell anyone moments. So you have healthy vitals. So you're giving yourself the best odds to be able to at least, your oils and everything in your body. Like, if you were a car, at least that's okay. You can't help that maybe it's gonna rain, a snowstorm or whatever, or maybe a flat tire here or there, but at least the engine is working properly. So another thing that kills men is what? Stressing, right? We stress is the number one thing of anything killer in men. Studies have been shown that stress can lead to so many disorders, skin conditions, has links to cancer, has links to so many other diseases. It just brings all our defenses down, stressing, and it puts our nervous system. It's such a heightened state that it makes we're susceptible to viruses. We're just susceptible to so much things. So stress level, and given the modern movement with women having more at stake in whatever it is in society, maybe it'll start taking off. Maybe men, and I said I had a podcast about letting women spoil you, and that podcast is just to like embrace the fact that women are coming into more of an equal footing hold. So men have to be okay with just letting them be that. And maybe once we start being okay with that, then it'll start taking some of the stress out of our life that will add more years to our life, because the less we have to stress on, the more our quality of life, the more we're able to decide, the more we're able to be fathers, the more we're able to lead, the more we're able to just be more fruitful. So stress right there. And then addressing habits, cigarettes, teaching more of a moderation culture than an excess and gluttony culture. It's probably a up here battle with that, because in every corner there's a McDonald's, in every corner there's a 7-Eleven. Everything's so obtainable. You have a porn addiction, boom, just turn on your phone, your laptop, your tablet. It's right there. So it's really hard to say those messages, but some of those add to shortening our lives. The way we live, maybe we don't address a sleep issue. Sleep issues are another big cause in men's depression, and how it affects us, and how it takes years off of our lives. It just trickles down to a lot more, and shaving years from our lives. Again, is anything perfect at the end? Can you guarantee that you're going to do that? No. But if you take the more variables that you can into your hands, you're adding more, potentially more years to your life. So then you can have an optimistic view and saying, yeah, I can't wait to be 80, 90, 100 years old, hopefully, and beyond, and still living a fruitful, positive, energetic life, because I'm going to have that kind of outlook. And that's the whole point of being able to change the narrative, instead of being like 77 is a good long life. And don't get me wrong, there's many across this world that don't even get anywhere near that age. And we should all be lucky to hit that and beyond. But I want to sit on the table where we need to start focusing and looking at beyond, looking at 80, 90 years old, 100 years old as a normal thing, where we still have stuff to do. We still have things to accomplish, because you know what? 77 isn't long enough. If 100 years isn't long enough. 150, 200 years isn't enough. But you know what? Let's start working towards the long goal, and that's changing diets, changing our stress levels, focusing on the quality of life that we're living, and having this message echo from an earlier age for it to reach more young men, so that it starts off earlier. So your decision, understand that when you pick up habits, it could take away from your life, whether it be drinking, drugs, cigarettes, abuses, vices, sex, whatever. It could take years off your life. So why not cherish the one thing that we might only have one of? And you know what they say, when you have one of something, it becomes the most valuable thing. So if we only have one life, I know there's many lives, but we only have our own life. So that's the most valuable thing. And we need to start living you know, living like that. And that's what I mean by men need to be fit, not for the short game. We know the short game. Yes, women will look at us different. Our wives, will look at us, good, and be attracted to us, and our girlfriends will too. And we'll feel more confident. We'll move through the world a lot more. We'll be such good leaders and stuff like that. And yes, their benefits, you'll feel good. You'll be able to run. You won't be so lethargic and stuff like that. That's all great. But the focus needs to be consistent, so that we add years to us having an optimistic outlook on 80, 90, 100 years old. And that's going to be our target. Too many times, again, past 63 years old, people are already giving up after retiring. Like, oh, I'm already retiring. And then how many times do you hear that they retire, and then 2-3 years later they're gone? They had no more, and they were fine when they were working. They were moving, they were energetic, but just they had no purpose. They had no more beyond that. And that's the thing, is being fit, mentally, spiritually, physically, having everything working in your favor. At the end of the day, there's so many variables that, hey, there's more negative than positive, but you want to hold as many things as possible on your side of what you're dictating, to not leave it to chance, to make sure that you're living the long life that you want, and the fruitful life that you want. It is what it is at whatever stage of life. You might be like, well, shit, I'm X amount of years. It's, it is what it is. And you're right. It is what it is. But it's never too late to have a different, outlook wherever you are, and saying, you know what, from here on I want to live a different quality of life. So I'm going to start acting different. I'm going to take control. I'm going to get over this habit. I'm going to clear up these friendships or relationships that don't benefit me no more. I'm going to look for another job. I'm going to stay fit mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally. All these kind of things is how we as men take control of our existence. And instead of saying, wow, 77 years old, what a drag, what a long life, oh my God, at that point you're useful. Hell no. Let's have a different view. At that point, 77, 80 years old, we're still going to be going strong. We're still going to be looking forward to another 15 years of amazing life and beyond, because we have to take that pride in being alive and being human and taking this existence with something of a little bit more beauty. I'm guilty of it, just like you're guilty of it, of taking this life for granted for a huge portion of it. And it's time to change the narrative. Everybody talks about this global awakening, this kind of new way of thinking of it. Then let's have that way of thinking. Let's embrace this kind of thought. Let's embrace this kind of mental healthness, physical healthness, this new outlook on what it is to live a life as a human being, and be an example, one, for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our friends, and then be a collective example for our neighbors around us and for the world. And then start helping those once we've achieved a moment in that, when we are fully reaching those numbers of 80, 100 years old in a normal trajectory, when we could start enhancing other people and be a global community that's reaching a healthy way of moving around. Again, I know there's people saying, well, the world can't, sustain and hey, we have more than enough. If you wanna have that discussion, not saying that it's infinite, there's definitely not infinite, but we definitely, as of date, have more than enough if everything flowed correctly. But anyways, that's the kind of narrative that I want to have, as far as like, hey, what would how can we add? Yes, staying fit. Yes, again, short-term gains. Again, we ought to agree, but let's have that long-term game. And for men, it's saying, hey, 77 is not it. 75 ain't it. I want to reach 100 years old, and how can I get there? And let's start having that and clearing up an environment so that our ecosystem reflects the way that we want, so that we're in a healthy ecosystem. We're in a healthy environment to allow us to add those extra 8 years that is going to get us over the hump, because every one of those actions with the vices, with healthy eating, with healthy, with fitness, that's like 7 years added, 8 years added. So we have to add another, 8, 9, 10 years on top of that to get us over the threshold, where we want to get to the 95, 100 years old. And that's where, what I just mentioned comes in. It's that kind of, is forceful thinking. The mind-body connection is said over and over in fitness. Well, I think it's true. There is a mind-body connection. So why not have the mind connected to the body and saying this body is going to last to be 100+ years old? And that, once we change that narrative in our own psyche and our own brain, then we'll start seeing these numbers go up. And that's what I want to see in men having more longer lives, fruitful lives. We're not, that number isn't reducing. I get it. Medicine has put us in the plateau, but just because medicine put us in the plateau, and look at what harm we do to ourselves as men. Imagine if we took a little interest as a collective species of men and took some kind of interest in ourselves, how much more we could push that number up. I'm saying 100 just to be non-made fun of. We could probably push those numbers up to 115, 120 if we're really serious. Because look at right now. Look at men around you. Look at yourself. Look at your diet. Look how you cheat yourself. Look how you go around the corner of everything that you have to do and only do it on a bare minimum. And what if we took 100% responsibility and focus? How much more can we push those years of life and increase the quality of life in our lives? I'm just saying, something to think about. So like the channel, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time.